Welcome back. In the previous step, we saw that when we click the get welcome message, the hello world bean service is called and we saw the response coming back. However, we were not able to really get the response and print it on the console. What we want to do is first get the response and print it on the console and then make use of it and show it on the welcome page. Let's get started with it right now. The first thing you need to understand is the fact that subscribe is an asynchronous call. It means this one will not return the result. Whenever we do an asynchronous call in JavaScript, what we need to do is we need to say what should we do when we get the result back. When we get the response back, what should we do? We should create a function like that and tie it up to the subscribe. So what we need to do now is we need to create a new function. So I'm going outside the get welcome message. So let's not really worry about this stuff right now. Let's have the subscribe in here. Let's create a new function. I'll call this handle successful response. So what we are saying is if a successful response comes back, do this. Now I'll do handle successful response, and what I'll do here is for now let's just do a console.log of response. We'll do a lot more a little later. For now console.log is good enough, and over here what we need to do is when the successful response comes back, what does it need to do? It needs to call the handle successful response. Whatever we are doing in here is called a arrow function. So what we are defining is we need to call this dot handle successful response with the response which comes back. We are saying when the subscribe, whatever is done by the observable is successful, get the response and call this specific method. One of the things you would observe is if I do a console.log in here. So let's do a console.log in here. Console.log last line of get welcome message. Let's see how this works out. Let's refresh and I'll clear the console and let's call get welcome message. The interesting thing you see is last line of welcome message is printed first and then message hello world. The way it works is this is asynchronous call, right? So what happens is over here we are saying execute the hello world bean service, and whenever a response comes back, do this. And what we are doing is just declaring it. We don't really need to complete execution, and after that immediately this line is executed, and whenever the response comes back, maybe after 2 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever response comes back, it gets printed out to the console. The advantage of this approach is we are not keeping the thread which is executing this hanging. What we are saying is just declaring it. That's the biggest advantage with observables. With observables, you just declare what needs to be done. What needs to be done if a successful response comes back, if an error comes back. And then you continue executing the rest of the code. And when the response comes back, it would be appropriately handled because we have already declared how to handle that. Now, actually, instead of doing this dot successful response, I could have actually done it very easy, right? Console.log response. So instead of this dot that, I could have done this as well. So let's say I was doing console.log response and I would want to get the message object, right? What we want to do is we would want to get the welcome message. From the response we would want to pick up the message. What would happen if I do a response.message? Aha, it says compilation error. The response does not exist. The message does not exist on the response. Now, we know that in the response there is a message. How do we define the object which is expected back when I execute a service? We can do that by going to the welcome data service, and over here I'll create another class defining what kind of response I am expecting back. So I'll say export class. I'll call this hello world bean, and let's create a constructor in here. Let's define a few public properties, and the structure we expect is the hello world bean would contain a message which is a string. So what we are doing in here is we are creating a simple bean defining the structure of the response that we are expecting, And the great thing is you can say in the get what response structure I am expecting back. I can say I am expecting a structure of the kind hello world bean. So if you are aware of generics in Java, this is something very similar to generics in Java. We are saying we are expecting this kind of a response back. And what I can do in here is go and see the code would compile. So what we are now getting is a response dot message. Now what I'll do is I'll go back to handle successful response. Let's call handle successful response with the response, and over here, oops, compilation error because this dot handle successful response, and over here now I can do response dot message. Let's see what would happen when I do a get welcome message. You'd see that hello world is also being printed out. That's cool. So what we have done is we have the response, we are able to get the message from the response, and now we would want to show it on the welcome component. So let's create another container and let's create a quick h2 out here. h2, oops, h2, and your customized welcome message. Now over here what we want to show is the message which comes back from the component. So what do you need to do is we need to first create a member variable message. I'll call this welcome message from service, and I'll say it's a string. What we can do now, I would want to populate the welcome message from service. Where can I do that? I can do that in here. Instead of logging the response and all that stuff, what I'll do is I'll say welcome message from service is equal to response dot message. Compilation error, this dot. So what is happening? The welcome message from service is tied up to the response dot message. The other thing is I don't really want to show this always. Before that, welcome message from service in here. Now I don't really want to show this always. I want to show it only when welcome message from the service has a value. So I'll put a ng if on top of the whole thing. Let's see what would happen right now. Let's say get welcome message, and you can see that underneath this, if I can minimize this, you can see hello world being printed. Where is this hello world coming from? The hello world is coming from this particular thing. Let's change this to make sure that we are getting it from here. So I'm saving this. You can see that the server is restarting and picking it up. So make sure that you restart it and pick it up. And if you do hello world bean, hello world change is coming up. That's cool. And now get welcome message, hello world changed is now being printed. So what we were able to successfully do until now is we were able to call a service in the back end, and we were able to show the response from it in the front end. Congratulations, and I'll see you in the next step.